It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
It's the best of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Appreciate you guys listening this morning as we talk about the housing market and what you guys are experiencing, as consumers when it comes time for you to think about buying, selling, or investing in real estate. We don't talk, at length about investing very often on this program, and it's something we're going to dedicate almost an entire show to next week. So stay tuned for that, because there are still plenty of people out there that are finding deals. I'm going to tell you how we're finding them, how we're sourcing them, how we're analyzing them, and whether it's just worth your time or not. Is it too risky right now to start to get into flipping? Is it too risky right now to get into buying and holding? I personally don't think so long as the deal makes sense. But we're going to talk more about that next weekend. So give you a little something to look forward to. I do also just want to kind of mention, just in the form of what we're experiencing when we talk with people right now that are thinking about making a move, but they're just uncertain about the economics of the decision. One of the things we always tend to hear during an election year, right around this time, is, well, we're going to just wait and we're going to see what happens in November. We're going to see what happens with the election. And when I ask for more information on that, or when I kind of just try to dig a little deeper on what they mean by that, is there something that they're concerned with? Are they afraid of something happening? Are they looking for some sort of opportunity that they think might arise as a result of that? I can be honest and blunt with you in that most people don't really know. They're concerned. And so, it's not my job or really my place to create motivation for somebody. I can aid somebody. I can provide information to help them better understand their decision and their choices. But your motivation is your own. And so for the folks that are saying, well, we're going to wait for the election in November and see what happens. I mean, I do understand that to an extent. I mean, think about the economic policies that have been put in place over the past few months that have really helped us remain afloat. I mean, we're fortunate to be in an industry right now in real estate that's just thriving as a result of this. I mean, we are working our tails off day in and day out. I've negotiated contracts at 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, almost every night of the week, it seems, for like the past month. There's just a lot of activity in our market right now. But if you think about, the PPP funds and the EIDL funds and the nice little check that, people got from the government, and the fact that interest rates are incredibly low right now. I mean, it's helping to keep our housing market and remain a robust housing market, but we also do need inventory. The market is it's unnaturally out of balance right now. It's very heavily favoring sellers. And not that I'm a proponent for a seller's market or a buyer's market or a normal market. I'm just here to say that the pendulum has swung so far to the right, meaning a seller's market, that of course it makes it really challenging for buyers. Sellers, of course, are taking full advantage of that right now. But I do want to just say that as a buyer, if you're not taking advantage of the interest rates right now, whether through refinancing or through buying a property right now, I think come this time, maybe next year, or certainly the year after that, I think it's going to be something you regret. And I'm being honest with that, because right now people still have a financial incentive to move. They've got the interest in moving because they've been living in their home and it's just not working for them, like I've said multiple times throughout this program. But you also have affordability that is attractive despite the fact that prices are still going up. And so people are concerned about maybe prices starting to come down a little bit. And so I want to pose this question to you. Which do you think is more likely to happen? Prices come down by 12% or interest rates go up by 1%? Because the reality is a 1% swing in interest rate affects your payment by about 12%. I think it's a little more likely for interest rates to go up than for prices to just jump way down 12%. So as a buyer, yeah, you might be paying top dollar for a property right now, and I get that, but you're locking into an interest rate that's incredibly attractive over the next 30 years. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when you want to go and buy something, it's going to be really hard to wrap your head around selling your property that you will have some equity in, but then purchasing something at a 4.5% interest rate. We're going to be looking at the payment, and that's going to become more important, I think, to people than what they're focusing on right now, because focus is on prices right now. So if you're thinking about making a move and you want to just talk through the process, feel free to give me a call. I'd love to just kind of give you an understanding of what we're experiencing and how we're consulting our clients, whether it makes sense for you or not, and whether we can help you throughout this process. So feel free to give me a call, 843-400-8009, 400-8009, or go to listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on The Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Now, here's more of The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on The Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
You're listening to the best of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Welcome back as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Spent the first half of the show talking about refinancing, why you should refinance, what opportunities exist right now that you can take advantage of to save money on a monthly basis for yourself and your family. Incredible opportunity. Again, can't stress enough to investigate this and see if it makes sense for you to refinance your mortgage. If you'd like information on who to call, who's the best in town, who's going to be responsive, who's got the best rates and the best fees, then please call me. I know them. I work with them every day. My phone number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or visit us online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or, of course, send me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. So I want to talk about preparing your house to sell this spring. That's where we're having a lot of conversations with people right now about putting their home on the market. It's prime time for people to start having those conversations, which is interesting, but it's just kind of the way it is. Sellers, when they initially contact a real estate agent, their lifespan of sorts from the time they make initial contact until the time they're ready to put their home on the market is very short. Usually they're calling people because they're like, hey, we'd like for you to come over, give us a price on our house, tell us what you're going to do to market it, and if it sounds good, then we're ready to list the house. And that's great, and don't get me wrong, I love those phone calls. Those are some of my favorite phone calls. That's like Christmas every day. But I would encourage sellers that are thinking about selling to give yourself a little more time. And so why would you do that? What is the benefit of doing that? So when people work with me and we help them sell their house, and it's going to be dependent upon the house and their situation and whether they're staying local or not as far as some of our incentives are concerned. If someone's selling and buying a house here in Charleston, we have two transactions, we're going to pay for your moving expenses. We want that to be an incentive to working with our team that helps save you money. For those of them for those folks that are getting ready to put their home on the market, please, 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 please call me before you start doing a bunch of work to your property. I want to be able to give you my advice and counsel on what to do and what not to do to prepare your home for sale. I can't tell you the number of times I've had a seller call me and all the work has already been done. And don't get me wrong, the properties will look great, but they've gone overboard or they've spent more money on certain things than I could have gotten that project done for. So rely on people like me that have experience and relationships that can save you money and time and stress and resources. So when we look at a property and we're walking through it, the question always comes up of, hey, what should I do to my house to prepare it for sale? And for a long time, I would just act as the stager and designer and decorator. And I'd roll up my sleeves and I'd move stuff around. I mean, I remember specifically this one condo downtown that I went in and I said, if you'll give me about 4 hours, I'll have this place whipped into shape. But you got to give me, free reign to kind of move things around if that's okay with you. She said, that's fine. It's a second home. We don't, it's not like we even live here. And I took out a pretty considerable amount of stuff in that condo, rearranged some furniture, moved rugs, moved all kinds of stuff, quite frankly. And she walked in and she goes, wow, Brian, I hate to say this, but I'm actually considering keeping it because you've helped me fall back in love with this property. Ultimately, we sold it. Had she chosen to keep it, that would have been fine. It would have been a nice little pat on the back. But the point is, there is a certain number of things that you can do to prepare your home to sell it that will help it sell faster and potentially for more money. Some of these statistics that people like to rely on, oh, well, a staged home sells for 10% more money. I really have a tough time with that one. I still haven't really seen data that truly supports that, because a lot of it is opinion based by real estate agents. I don't know if there's been a study, and correct me if I'm wrong. If you're a stager and you're listening to this show, please let me know. I'd love to see the data. But my guess is that it's still going to be based on the opinion of real estate agents in terms of, how much more money a staged home could sell for versus a home that's vacant. And we have some workarounds to that. Virtual staging, as an example, has come a long way. When we virtually stage a vacant property, you can't tell that those pieces of furniture and art and rugs were photoshopped in. You really can't. It's incredible. We even did a little test on our Facebook page to say, hey, which one of these are virtually staged? And everybody's saying, oh, this one is, or that one is, and this one is, and that one is. They were all virtually staged. They couldn't tell. So, there have been some incredible advances there. But when you're preparing your home for sale, one of the things that I really stress, especially if you've lived in your home a while, is to get a pre-listing home inspection. We can focus on the aesthetics, right? I'll have, and that's part of an incentive as well, we will have a professional designer and decorator walk through your property and tell you room by room, this is what you should do, this is what you should not do, this is what you could do, and you walk away with a list. And, people love it. Sometimes people are like, well, I don't want to do all this stuff. Isn't it a seller's market? Can't I just put it on the market and it'll sell? Well, yeah, maybe. Or it could be one of those properties that sits. And we want to use every tool at our disposal to help you sell your house quickly and for the most amount of money possible. So we love bringing our designer and decorator in there, because I have yet to list a property that she's walked through that I have not sold. True story. We want to turn your house into, a product of sorts that speaks to as many people as possible using the natural elements of your house. So that works really well. The pre-listing home inspection, I want to stay on that for just a second, because that has been a huge help for us, because the primary role in doing that is to uncover things that might be wrong with your house that you are unaware of. So when we do our pre-listing home inspection, we have an inspector go through and we find things. Let's say that there's a pretty long list of things that need to be done, which is not uncommon. And we see that pretty often. And of course, it's everything from, this door rubs against the door jamb, or this door doesn't close all the way because the strike and latch plane aren't matched up, or this toilet's a little wobbly, to more serious things like, hey, you've got some rotten wood in your crawl space. You've got ductwork that is deteriorating. You have an HVAC issue. Your hot water heater needs to be replaced. All these things can result in big ticket expenses in the middle of a transaction. And the scary thing for that is that people aren't building enough contingency for those things that might arise in a home inspection. I'd rather get that information up front and then have very clear expectations financially as to what the impact of those findings will be on the overall sales process. The other benefit to that is that if we identify these things before a buyer does, then we get to control who we hire and how much we pay people to fix them. This is huge. This is one of the ways we save people a lot of money. Because if a buyer's contractor walks through the property, and the buyer who does this so often says, you know what, rather than you doing a bunch of the work, just give us a credit for the work. Give us a $5,000 credit or whatever it is. Well, that $5,000 that was quoted by the buyer's contractor, maybe that work can be done for $2,000 or $2,500. The problem is we are now allowing the buyer and their contractor to dictate what that cost is going to be. And the challenge is most buyers don't know how much things cost. They really don't. Most agents, quite honestly, struggle with knowing how much things cost, because if they haven't renovated properties, or if they haven't been through this process a bunch to then gain the experience and understanding of how much things cost, then they're not as well equipped to advise you as somebody that, like me, I've spent millions of dollars of my own money renovating and flipping and fixing up property. I know how much things cost. So I can advise people on what we're looking at here. And of course, we back that up by quotes from actual professionals. But I can give them very, very close ballparks. And that's important because if we need a certain amount of money out of the sale of the property in order to go and buy something else, and then we get hit with a home inspection with several thousands of dollars worth of stuff that need to be fixed, and let's say the buyer doesn't want a credit, they want that work to be done. Well, then we've got to outlay the cash to get those repairs made, which might impact things like your down payment or your ability to pay a down payment and closing costs. Or maybe now you're buying a house that you have enough money to buy regardless, but now you can't fix it up like you wanted to before you move in. There's so many different impacts to the buyer and to the seller here that it makes sense for you to have somebody walk through your property and identify those things so that you have knowledge of them, so that people can't take advantage of you financially when it comes time for them to negotiate a deal. And what we're seeing a lot of, and what we've seen a lot of for the past several years, is that these buyers will essentially give sellers very close to their asking price, but then as soon as that home inspection comes up, they will beat them up over that home inspection. And they'll want everything on that list fixed. Because think about it. Now that seller is mentally, emotionally, and in some cases physically committed to moving. Stuff's being boxed up. Arrangements are being made to move into some new place, whether it's to buy or to rent. And what the buyers are hopeful of is that they've caught you in a position where you're now kind of between a rock and a hard place, because it would be too costly or too risky for you to play hardball with that buyer over repairs, over a few $1,000s, because then you'd have to start the process all over again. So it's kind of like the buyer thinking in their back of their mind, like, I got you now. And a lot of sellers, if you're caught in that position, maybe it does make sense. I mean, I kind of hate to say it, but maybe it does make sense for you to say, all right, well, let's just get it done. Let's just do it, because I don't know if I can get a good offer like the one that I've gotten now again, or get one soon. And I'd rather just be done with the process. And that's the point that's where a really good agent can help save you money, because for the sellers to say, I don't want to deal with it, whatever, fine, I'll pay a few extra $1,000s to just get this deal done. Had we done those things up front, and had we been given a little more time to account for those things, we could have saved you thousands of dollars. So give your agent a little time to walk you through the process, to do things the right way, to put your best foot forward, to have a very clear understanding of the financial impact of your decision to sell and buy something with very clear expectations. And I promise you that will be a smoother transaction, and you will like your real estate agent a whole lot more if you just let us help you a little bit in the preparation phase before you decide to sell your house. So if you'd like my help with that, or if you want more information on what to do to prepare your home for sale, I do have a free guide that I've written personally. It's called 90 Things to Do to Sell Your Home for Top Dollar in Any Market. And so if you'd like a copy of that, either call or text me 843-400-8009. In fact, if you want to text me, just text the word guide to 843-400-8009. Or you can go on my website, listingsincharleston.com, and contact me through that. Or, of course, send me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. So stick around. We got a few minutes left on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 9 and each Sunday morning at 10 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
1250 WTMA.
You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
It's the best of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Welcome back, Charleston, to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. So we're switching it up today. We're just kind of pulling questions out of a hat asked by you folks and loyal listeners of this program. So thank you for that. Hopefully you guys haven't thrown me any curveballs yet. We'll see how things go. Still plenty of time left in the program. But of course, if you want to reach out to me and talk more about working together, aside from doing this show, which I love, it's a passion of mine, we sell real estate throughout the week. And so we'd love the opportunity to work with you if you're thinking about buying a home or selling a home or investing in some real estate. I can be reached at 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. You can learn more about myself and my team and who we are and what kind of properties we sell, and which is everything, by the way. Listen to hundreds of versions of this show. We've been doing this for, I think, going on 8 years now, and a whole bunch more. So listingsincharleston.com. So, Sam, you read the question of how, let me make sure I get this right.
I'll read it. It's from Andrew D, and it's how low is too low for a lowball offer, from Andrew D.
Andrew, good question. I think this is probably going to interest a lot of people. That's a good one, Andrew.
Yeah.
But I think what you're looking for is some sort of like percentage. And the reality is that doesn't exist, because that's not the proper way of approaching the process, if that makes sense. So here's what I would say. Number one, not every home is priced in conjunction with fair market value. There are plenty of properties that are 10% overpriced, 15% overpriced, 20% overpriced. So if I say 10% as what I would consider to be, anything lower than that is a low ball offer, that would be 10% off of fair market value. But if something's listed for $500,000 and it's worth $450,000 and you offer 10% below that, then you're just offering them what it's worth. So you have to look at each individual property and determine, okay, what's this property actually worth? And of course, that's what the real estate agent does for you. We want to show you the properties that fit your needs. We want to get you, or match your excitement about the property. But we also want to be very diligent in our research to make sure that you're making a wise financial decision. So we see this property, we run the comparables on it, we run our analysis, and we determine what we think this property is worth. So in this example, if it's listed for $500,000, but it's worth $450,000, and we offer them, say, $420,000, if it's worth $450,000 and we offer $420,000, is that a low ball offer? Well, in my opinion, no, that's not a low ball offer. $400,000 would be a low ball offer. But you have to think about it. The sellers think, if, let's say that we offered $420,000, well, $420,000 off of $500,000, that's $80,000. They might consider that to be a low ball offer, but in reality, it's not, because it's not that far off of what that property is worth. So from a buyer's perspective, this is really what you want to do. This is kind of the magic behind this process. And this is going to depend on how long this property has been on the market and how motivated this person is to sell. So both of those pieces of information you should have before you make the offer. Now, you probably might be asking yourselves, well, how do we know how motivated a seller is to sell the property? Well, if you're a real estate agent and you've been doing this for long enough, you know the right questions to ask to kind of uncover that information. Just like the seller wants to know who the buyer is and where they come from and what their story is and do they have a home to sell, and if they walk through it and they like it, are they in a position to buy it, and have they been pre-approved for a mortgage, or are they paying cash? Sellers have all these questions for buyer agents, and this is something that we put people through when they want to see our properties. We want to make sure, we pre-qualify our showings. We want to make sure that if somebody is going to leave their house and clean it up and pack up their kids and their dog and they're put it in the car for an hour and drive around aimlessly, I want to make sure that they're doing that for somebody that has a really good reason for being in that house and that would probably buy it if it checks all their boxes. Not, we're visiting some family and we live in Florida and we're going to be retiring next year, so we just wanted to gain a sense of, what properties looked like in this area. And next year, if we decide to put our home on the market, then at least we'll know this is an area we'd consider, along with Myrtle Beach and Charlotte. And it's just like the quintessential tire kicker that you have just spent all this time letting walk through your house that will not buy it. So obviously, sellers don't want to go through that process, and that's something we make sure doesn't happen. Obviously, no plan is foolproof, but you want, as a buyer, you want to make an offer that's just low enough for them to consider it and respond. If you go too low and they reject it, then you have to figure out how much further up the chain you have to go to solicit that response out of that seller. You don't want to negotiate against yourselves. Now, I realize the irony in saying this, but on the seller side of things, I do not like my sellers to reject offers. And here's why. I don't really care where they start. I just care where they finish. And I have had too many success stories in my career where somebody did make a lowball offer. I had somebody that made I think we had the property listed for like $1.34 million. They offered $1 million. We came off the price $15,000 and the buyer took it. Obviously, in most instances, it's fairly justified for the seller to want to just reject the offer. Be like, come on, don't waste my time. $1 million on a $1.34 million house, that's worth it? No, thank you. Go waste someone else's time. But when we had the conversation and I explained my reasoning and we came back, the buyer took it. I mean, that's an extreme example, but the reality is this. You want to sell the house. The buyer wants to buy the house. Let's get the emotion out of the way. If some people they just can't help it. They just have to make a lowball offer. Maybe it's just so they can like put that notch in their belt and be like, okay, well, now we know. Now we know, because everybody hears these glorified stories of somebody getting a property for a considerable amount off of the asking price. You don't know the dynamics of that transaction. You don't know if that property that they bought for $250 was worth, $260 and they only got a $10,000, bonus in the form of equity, but it was listed for $300. It was way overpriced. I mean, there's so many dynamics that go into that. But in this market, if you find a buyer that wants to buy and a seller that wants to sell, yeah, there might be frankly, a little bit of a stupid decision made on either side of the transaction initially. But if you can get over that, take advantage of that, put yourself in the position of power, and go back to the party and say, hey, you know what? I appreciate you putting together an offer on my house, but I'm not going to sell it for that amount. So here's the deal. I'm going to come down $5,000 just to show you that I'm willing to negotiate, but your next offer better be a good one. Otherwise, I will not spend any more of my time on it. Now, if a seller said that to me and I really wanted to buy that house, I'm not a tire kicker, I'm a real buyer, then I'm going to take that seriously and I'm going to say, okay, all right, you caught me. Let's make a deal. And usually that's the way it goes. But when you let emotion get in the way and you say, that is just absurd. That's ridiculous. No way. Tell them to take a hike, pound pavement, pound sand. You don't get anywhere with that. So anyways, hope that answers your question, Andrew. Sam, what's next? We're just pulling questions out of a hat. I don't know what these questions are. Sam does a great job of keeping me on my toes here, both in our real estate office and on this radio show. So apparently he's got just a bunch of questions from people, and I'm doing my best to answer them. Hope I'm doing a good job. But it's one of those interesting shows where I just wanted to switch it up today. So here we go. Well, what's the next one?
I do my best to keep you on your toes, by the way. I appreciate that. Okay, so this one's a long one. It's from Sydney, and it's, what's the average amount of years that people stay in their first home, and what are some things to consider when you're thinking of upgrading to a larger home? And that's from Sydney. So what's the average amount of years people stay in their first home, and what are some things to consider when you're thinking of moving or upgrading to a larger home?
Gotcha. Great question, Sydney. I think that average kind of it goes up and down the scale. I think it's around 7 years. It might be a little shorter than that now, actually, but it ebbs and flows with the market and the dynamics of the market. Obviously, if you look at a few years ago, well, let's just go back. Let's say 10 years ago, you could buy something for an incredibly low price, and then but the interest rates weren't fantastic, not like they are now. So you could, say 5 years later, you could go and buy something where you have had significant equity appreciation, price appreciation in your own home, and a lower interest rate, meaning there was a financial incentive for you to move. you could buy a more expensive home, but keep your payment the same. As time has gone by and as this market has shifted more and more and more toward a seller's market, I mean, if you look at the numbers in January compared to January in 2019, we basically put the same amount of homes on the market, but sold over 30% more real estate, which cut the inventory down from 4 months supply on average to 3 months supply on average. There's just there's just a shortage of homes right now. And I've been talking about this for years, but it's getting worse. We need people to put their homes on the market. Challenge is they're really having problems finding something to move into, which is a problem created by a shortage of inventory, which is also why we need builders putting inventory out there. That's a separate topic. But what do they need to consider when moving into a larger home? Well, I think that for a lot of people, obviously they start making more money. They economically are more upgraded than they were a few years ago. They can afford it. A lot of people do it out of necessity because they've got a growing family. Think about that. I mean, that house that you bought as a first-time home buyer just ain't going to cut it with 2 kids now, or 3 kids, or 1 kid. My God, I remember how much my life changed when I had a kid. And living in a 2-bed, 2-bath condo would not have been ideal. I mean, you can always make it work, but certainly wouldn't have been ideal. But we wanted to buy a house at that time that we could grow into, and we were okay with staying longer and buying a slightly more expensive house sooner than we anticipated because of the growth, but also because we knew that at the current interest rate, which was the current payment plus the down payment that we had saved, that we could afford it and not stretch ourselves financially if things got a little worse before they got better again. So I think one of the things that people don't take into consideration often enough is what life is going to look like a few years down the road. They're making decisions for the now, not so much as it relates to like their family makeup, but their financial aptitude. Think about all the people out there that, and I know some of them. I'm not going to go there. I almost got myself in trouble, but there are people that live their lives paycheck to paycheck, and the more money they make, they don't get themselves out of that grind because they just spend more of what they make. Every time they start to make more money, they upgrade. The idea of living below their means is not something they've ever had to do before, because every time they get an upgrade, they get a raise, that debt finally gets paid off, then they just put more debt on top of it. And it's a problem that is running rampant throughout America right now. We see it all the time in folks that we talk to that are inquiring about properties we have for sale, and they make good money, but they're so maxed out on their expenses and their debt that whatever they make, they spend. They're not saving or investing it. So I think something to take into consideration is if you're going to move up into a larger home, be realistic about what you want and what you need, but also take into consideration the fact that there can be times where life isn't as good as it is right now. And if you don't have that safety net built up, you don't have that, that account that you can rely on if you lose your job or if you're in sales and business is slow, then you're setting yourself up for some real problems. So that's what I would say to that. That's probably the biggest thing that would be in the back of my mind is, are you making decisions for the now? And is your current financial picture a reality several years from now? Or if something happens, how much trouble are you going to be in? Because and maybe that's just me being bearish and the product of me getting into real estate in 2006 as somebody that had just graduated college. And then by the time I'm, 24 years old and I'm one of the top real estate agents in town and I'm helping people through horrific financial situations, loss of job, loss of income, medical bills, can't pay their mortgage payment. They're going to have to relocate their family or turn in the keys to the bank because they just can't afford to live there anymore. And what are they going to do? Those are really tough conversations to have. So I've always been a little more conservative financially in my own personal life. obviously in business, when you hire me to market your properties, you'll see as we're going through the marketing plan that I am anything but conservative. I invest in many different ways to create exposure, and I invest in processes that make your life as a seller easier and our life as a real estate agent more efficient, so that we can do more and be more available to our clients. So, hope that answers the question. And if you guys want to reach out to me and talk with me personally about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, we'd love to have that conversation with you. My number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or visit my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll have a few more questions, I'm sure. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty next on 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA, the Big Talker.
Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
You're listening to the best of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Really excited to be here. We've got a lot of ground to cover this morning, a lot of information that I want to share with you this weekend about the real estate market. I think there's a lot of uncertainty out there. I think a lot of people are concerned about the direction of our market. And so I want to talk about some of the problems that are causing these concerns in the real estate market. I want to talk about what it looks like to buy or sell a home this time of year, what's motivating people to keep their home on the market or maybe take it off and put it on the beginning of next year, and how do you find success in the market this time of year, regardless of whether you want to buy, sell, or invest. And so I want to start this weekend show off by reading a question that I had, and granted, this is a fairly high-level question, and I'm going to kind of reduce this down a little bit, but obviously we have folks that reach out to me after this show that want to talk real estate, that just enjoy the topic. Of course, people that want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, or maybe they just need some help with aligning with the contractor, or they need some work done around the house, or they want to talk about their plans for the future. And so Andrew asks, so we're in an 11-year stock market bull run. We've got low interest rates, low to mid-level housing shortage. And does that lead to inflated asset prices that will be unsustainable in a weaker economy? I.e., are people able to pay more for houses because monthly interest rates are lower because of rates? But if rates rise, will that hurt the potential liquidity of your home? So great question, Andrew, and appreciate that, and I can certainly speak to that at a very high level. But here's the deal. We can see the overall economy is good. Wages are rising. There are near record low unemployment rates, and interest rates are still very low. And over the past 10 plus years, the housing market has not only stabilized, but it's thrived over the past several years. So what, if anything, is the biggest challenge in our housing market today? And I've talked about this at length on this show over the past 7 years that I've been on air talking about real estate and providing you with expert news and reviews about the real estate market, not just nationally and locally or regionally, but here locally. How does this impact us, Charlestonians, and our interest in buying, selling, investing in real estate? And so, of course, I tell you what I'm seeing in the market, but I also share my experiences with you as somebody that's been in the top 1% of agents for over a decade now, and have sold over 1,000 homes in the market. And so the answer is fairly simple, but I want to break it down. The answer is inventory. According to the existing home sales report, which is put out by the National Association of Realtors, total housing inventory at the end of September, this is nationwide, sat at 1.83 million, which is approximately equal to the amount of existing homes that were available for sale in August. But it was a 2.7% decrease from a year ago. So we have unsold inventory at a 4.1 month supply at the current sales pace, which is up from 4.1, which isn't a huge swing, which was back in August, but it's down from 4.4 in September of 2018. And so let me just kind of break this down for you, because I know that's a lot of numbers. While homes are coming to the market, they're not hitting the market fast enough. So right now, across the country, there's less than 6 months of overall inventory of homes for sale, putting us in a seller's market, meaning the sellers have the advantage, and they have for a long time now. The challenge is that there's not enough homes for sale to increase the supply needed for the number of people who want to buy, especially in the starter to middle level markets. So to be in a balanced market, let me just help you understand this. To be in a balanced market, meaning we have enough inventory for the number of buyers in the market, we need to have about 6 months supply of inventory available. So today, we are nowhere near that number. And as a matter of fact, the last time we reached that height nationally was August of 2012. So when we look at the inventory challenge today, we can see that now is a great time to potentially sell your house. And truthfully, waiting may end up being the hardest part in the long run. You know, this landscape is a great place for sellers who own homes in the starter and mid-level markets to take the opportunity to sell in a seller's market before inventory catches up with the demand. And serious buyers they're actively in the market. And contrary to popular belief, because when we talk with folks, every day about their real estate needs, a lot of them are saying, look, we're interested, but we're not going to do anything until next year. And so contrary to popular belief, people are ready to make a move this time of year. When inventory is limited, especially at the lower end, like it is today, selling before more homes are listed could mean a significant advantage to a seller for those that are ready to move up into a higher price range. The upper level of the market has a lot more inventory available, so it's a win-win across the board. And so in the Tri-County area of Charleston, let me kind of help you understand how this applies to us here in Charleston. In the Tri-County area of Charleston, right now we are at 3.4 months supply of inventory across all price ranges. But if you look at it under $300,000, we're at 2.3 months supply of inventory. And remember what I said about a balanced market having 6 months supply of inventory? We haven't had that in the $300,000 and below price range since January of 2013. I mean, market-wide in all price ranges, we haven't had that since the summer of 2014. So let me just say this. I know I can get out of hand with my numbers because I'm such a data freak when it comes to analyzing the market. But that's also why people, like working with me. I know the market. I know how to price properties to sell, and I know how to offer the appropriate guidance based on market trends that are happening right now that aren't really reflected in the data yet. And so we've been talking about this inventory issue for a long time now, years on this show, and the potential impact it's going to have to our market. It remains fairly unchanged. In fact, inventory continues to go down. And so when that happens, it creates a fairly crippling effect. Even though on paper, it's a fantastic opportunity for a seller, what it really does is it limits opportunity for buyers to either purchase that first home because they don't want to settle on the first home they buy, which then impacts the first-time home seller to move into a more expensive home. And most agents' knowledge of the market is limited to the data they're provided either by their brokerage or what they read online or what they hear, other agents talking about. And I mean, who knows how valid that information can be. You also have to ask yourself the following question, and I realize the irony in this because I'm providing you with my opinion of what's happening in the market right now, but you have to ask yourself the following question because this is very relevant. Has this data been strategically designed to inspire me to act upon it? We move toward pleasure or we move away from pain. That's just how we process our decisions. So are you getting the full picture of what's happening in the market right now, or are you just getting the pieces of relevant data that make things seem better or worse than they really are? And so when I sit down and I talk with folks about the process of buying or selling a home, we talk about the market in totality. And we talk about the pulse of the market, a lot of which is happening right now that the data just doesn't reflect. In order to develop a trend in the market, at least on paper, you need about 6 months worth of data. Well, if you're trying to make a decision on whether to buy or sell right now, and people always ask themselves the question of, hey, if I buy right now, could I have gotten a better deal 3 months from now? Could I get a better deal 6 months from now? It's very hard to tell you on air the answer to that because every property is specific. Every area, every price range, every street has different dynamics that we need to look into. We need to interpret, and the ability for somebody to do that successfully time and time again is what allows people to trust their real estate agent, to receive that solid advice that helps them feel good about the decision they're going to make. And it's very hard to time the market. Speculation is obviously a very hard thing to quantify. I can tell people what I think is going to happen. It's an opinion. There's obviously no factual data that's going to back that up because things change. Things are always changing. So if you're thinking about selling your house right now, as an example, let me just tell you, not very many people put their home on the market.
Your station for Decision 2020.
WTMA, Charleston.
A Cumulus station.